So we hope you're having a great day wherever it is you happen to be, and we're going to have a good show today. We've been trying to get her on for a while, and that was a little bit of an ordeal in and of itself on a couple of different fronts. Magenta Pixie is with us today, and I'm going to get into a proper introduction with Magenta in just a moment. Now, on with our show, and we are so excited to have Magenta Pixie on. I know. This is great. She's been in communication with a collective group of light beings or a higher self aspect all the way since 1993, and she affectionately refers to these beings as the White Wing Collective Consciousness of Nine, or simply the Nine. I like that better.
I do too.
Yeah, that other one is just like, wow, that's a lot.
You said that's a mouthful.
The Nine, I like that. Regular meditation and a journey of synchronicity within her own life led to this awakening and connection. And Magenta releases her message from the Nine in video form on YouTube. And since releasing her first message in 2008, she's attracted over 70,000 subscribers. She's worked individually with clients all over the world and is the author of Masters of the Matrix, Divine Architecture and the Starseed Template, The Infinite Helix and the Emerald Flame, and her latest work, The Black Box Program and the Rose Gold Flame is Antidote. These are channeled books teaching individuals, particularly starseeds and lightworkers, to find their own sovereignty through the understanding of their own energy system, and her passion is helping people to move through trauma, embrace the enlightenment and ascension path, and find their own connection with creativity, divinity, and joy. And of course, you can always visit Magenta Pixie at her website, where you can get the aforementioned books and a lot more at magentapixie.com. Magenta, welcome to the show. We're glad we were finally able to get you on, and we're happy to have you here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for inviting me on. It's lovely to be here.
Well, now, did we or did we not have to jump through some hoops though to be able to finally hook up? It's almost, I don't want to sound conspiratorial, but it's almost like we can't have these three people hooking up together in public.
Absolutely, and I think it seems to be that way every time there is a creative venture, a co-creative venture taking place of a high vibrational level. Often it does seem like there's one energy that's conspiring to prevent it, but then there's always this sort of divine timing that's going on as well, so that when you do come together to co-create, it's often the right time for that.
Exactly.
and we're here, and we're thankful for it. We are here now. So there we go. Magenta, for those that may not be familiar with you and your work, perhaps a little short bio on yourself, because I read your story and it's compelling.
Okay, right. Well, just to go through that very briefly, as I have spoken about my journey a lot before, I'll try not to double up, but I had lots of interesting things happen to me as a child. I knew things before they happened. When I was very young, I sensed fairies in the garden. I used to talk to them. My father was a hypnotist, started off being a stage hypnotist and then went into hypnotherapy. And he took me into hypnosis at a very, very young age, I think starting off when I was 2 or 3. And then he taught me self-hypnosis when I was 11. During that session, one of the sessions, I don't know whether it was an early session or later on, but during one of those sessions, it was almost as though a part of me sort of took a back seat and another aspect of my consciousness stepped forward and would then speak to my father during these sessions and explain to my father why I did the things I did and, what was going on at school and all of these things. So that was the first time this other aspect of myself started to come forward. Obviously, I know now that this is a brainwave change. So when these brainwaves change this way, the brain remembers, the body remembers how to do this. It's the same as doing exercise. The body and brain remembers what to do. But I didn't know any of these things at the time. I was only 11 when this happened. And my father used to tell me it was the subconscious mind that was communicating, which of course is correct. And I used to call this subconscious mind because to me it felt like an entity. It felt like a person, a being. So I would call this being subby. So that was when I was around 11. And then fast forward, I guess, to much later on, after, again, many spiritual things happening and too much to mention, really. But going into sort of early 30s, I specifically intended to connect with a spirit guide. I wanted to do this. I felt that this was my destiny after seeing a medium work, and I just watched this medium and thought, I'm going to do that one day, but not in the same way as that person. So I saw this medium work and I felt that I was going to do the same thing, but in a very different way. In fact, at the time I felt, I'm not going to be a medium, I'm going to be a medium for other mediums. And I remember thinking, well, why would other mediums even need a medium when they're a medium themselves? So I didn't know what any of this meant at the time. So I found this book called Channeling. It actually was one of those moments when the book just falls out of the bookcase in front of you on the floor. And it was called Channeling. It was a series of meditations. I went into doing these meditations to meet the one true guide or the spirit guide. And after meeting many false entities, which is all part of the process, that was explained in the book that might happen, and it did. Eventually, I met this. You had to ask each being, are you of Christ consciousness? And often they'd say, oh no, I'm not, you've got me. And I'd be sitting there really surprised, like, oh, he wasn't, and then there'd be another one, are you of Christ consciousness? No, I'm not. And they get all funny and silly, and the imagination is actually such an amazing cosmic tool. It's fabulous. When you actually do meet the one true guide, your spirit guide, guardian angel, whatever words you want to give it, you don't need to even ask, are you of Christ consciousness? Because the light is so brilliant, and the sort of cosmic heat, I call it, it's like the sun just beaming down on you. The light is so powerful, and it brought tears to my eyes. And I said, you are of Christ consciousness, aren't you? And you're my true guide. So that's kind of when it started, really. And then I would have to go into meditation to communicate with this light being that called itself White Spirit. And I was living with my brother at the time, who had studied all of these different spiritual modalities and different scientific theories that I knew nothing about. And he would ask me all these complicated questions that I had no idea about. And I would go into meditation and communicate with White Spirit and get the answer. Now, little did I know at the time that what I was doing was exactly the same thing as when I was in hypnosis with my father. It's the same thing, but it was perceived completely differently from the age of 11 and then the age of sort of my early 30s. So I'd go into meditation. I would speak to White Spirit. I'd ask White Spirit the question that my brother had asked me. I would come out of meditation, and then I would tell my brother, okay, this is what White Spirit said. And it went on like this for a very short period of time, maybe sort of days or a couple of weeks, because there was this one moment when my brother asked me a specifically complicated question, and I'm trying to get the question in my mind to remember it. And all of a sudden, White Spirit was there. So as I said, it's the same thing as being in hypnosis. The difference is you're in hypnosis while you're awake. You don't go into a trance to activate this brainwave change. You actually do this while you're fully awake. It's just the brain gets better at doing this, I guess. But I didn't know any of this at the time. I just was completely shocked to see White Spirit there. And I'm saying to my brother, he's here. And my brother said, what do you mean? I said, he's right here. I can see him. I can feel him. He's talking to me, and I don't need to go in meditation. How is this happening while I'm awake? And he's there at the same time. And, I was just, and White Spirit saying, relax, calm down. If you get too, if you get too sort of freaked out, then it blocks the signal. I'm going, okay, like this. So this is how it started, really. And it went on from there. And I worked with White Spirit. When I say worked with, I kept this quiet. I did not tell people. It was not something I intended to broadcast to others. I kind of was a bit embarrassed in a way because everyone else seemed so normal and I was so different speaking to this non-physical entity. But he taught me so much. I worked with my brother, the two of us together. My brother would ask the questions and he would ask deeper and deeper, more and more questions. And White Spirit took us into training where we would go into transfiguration with one another. We would ask about our past lives. We would actually have vivid past life, visionary experiences, basically everything that occurs in an ascension period and a very, very concentrated time period. It was 6 months, and White Spirit told me at the time that what we were going through was I was very much into theatre. I'm from a theatrical family, so obviously it's my brother because he's my brother. My father was an opera singer, my mother was a ballet dancer, so we grew up in the theatre and we did drama ourselves, and so we knew drama terminology. So White Spirit said, this is a rehearsal, it's a dress rehearsal. So we understood how important a dress rehearsal is. It's like almost the performance, but it's not the actual performance.
Yeah.
So he was explaining about the shift that was taking place on this planet called the ascension process. And he was explaining what was going to happen and why it was happening and all these things that he was telling us. And funnily enough, this was marrying up to a lot of the things my brother had studied when he'd studied different religions and different spiritual modalities, different scientific theories. Everything was adding up to him. So my brother was there in a more sort of scientific sense and somewhat spiritual sense to explain what White Spirit was saying. And this went on, as I said, for 6 months. And White Spirit said to us both, I'll let you know when it's performance time. And we were expecting to hear that, and we didn't. And, my brother and I went different ways in life. And we left the flat that we were both sharing, and he went off elsewhere, and so did I. And then I was kind of on my own with my spirituality and not with my brother, so it was much more difficult for me because I was no longer in this kind of pre-ascension bubble. I went back to kind of normal life, if you like, back to 3D and living with the fact that I'm communicating with this non-physical entity. And that went on for years and years. And it was around about the year 2000 when I went through an experience where White Spirit told me he was upgrading. So he was kind of leaving and a new entity would be coming in. He was 5th dimensional and the new entity coming in was 6th dimensional. I was very upset for White Spirit to go because by this time, I mean, this first connection with him was in 1993 and it was the year 2000 that he was telling me that he was leaving. But then he explained that he's not really leaving, he's upgrading because I was upgrading, and he explained everything to me. And then I went through this intense process where White Spirit kind of transformed, but White Spirit still left because the new entity was not White Spirit. The new entity was completely different, and it was this white being that looked, well, exactly like an angel, how I would expect an angel to look. But I didn't believe that I could talk to angels. I thought that was way beyond my capabilities. So I kept trying to analyze what this white-winged being could be, because I couldn't believe it would be an angel. And then this white-winged being morphed into several. It became a collective. There were 9 of them. I wanted to give them a name, and the signal from them was so much more powerful. With White Spirit, it was very much like speaking to a friend. It was a one-on-one. It was like the two of us, Mm-hmm. But with White Spirit, it was a large beaming energy that was so much more expansive, and took me quite a while to get used to that. I asked them what their name was. They told me their name, and it was completely unrecognizable and unpronounceable in any English language whatsoever. So I said, is it okay to call you collective consciousness of 9, as there's 9 of you and you're a collective consciousness and you have white wings. And they said that was fine. And obviously, as you said earlier, the 9 is much better. The white wing collective consciousness of 9 is a real mouthful. That's
a
true.
Mouthful, yeah.
Absolutely. It was just me trying to kind of give them a label. And then I remember saying, if you've changed, because they would change form. Sometimes I would have 9 white-winged beings with angelic faces. Everything was white about them. Other times they'd be 9 men in jeans and a t-shirt, or just 9 men in jeans and a white t-shirt, literally. Other times one would step forward and she'd be a female, a goddess, pure white with white hair. Other times they all had bird faces, so they were white-winged beings with birds' faces. So they would change, and I would talk to them about this sort of morphing of their appearance and what it meant. And I said, is there more to you than this form? Because I felt moving from white spirit to them was an extreme upgrade of form. And then they said, well, yes, we lose the human form and we upgrade to other presentations. And I said, can you show me? And so they did, and that's when I started to see the cosmos, the cosmic vortices. That's when I saw these wavy silver electrical lines and matrices and felt the energy of stars and universal light and sound and geometries that still to this day I have not fully processed, because it's something that you are just going to be processing infinitely, because it's an infinite structure. So I was always much more comfortable with the 9 because it's kind of like a physical form, and I do remain with the 9 when I communicate, but I can easily move beyond the form and allow them to take me on these journeys through this cosmic matrix when I'm working with them. If I'm working with them intensely in channeling sense, as in when I do the videos for YouTube or when I'm channeling the books, I will lose the form of the 9 and let them take me on this journey as they bring the downloads through. If I'm in a situation where I'm talking to someone like with you and you ask me a question, a lot of the responses that I will give you are my memory, because I've learned these things and over the years. But if you ask me a question, I have no idea what the answer is, then I will bring forward the 9 and move into this sort of a 0 point field where we have the past, the present, and the future, and then I can look at all these different sections of reality in order to respond to your question, and that would be guided by the 9, if you like. But all of this is simply just the way my brain interprets this higher dimensional cosmic code, and there is no right or wrong way to do this. Some people won't have guides, they won't have angels or 9 beings, they will see something very, very different. Some individuals won't even see clairvoyantly, they will feel in their body. Every single person can do this, and how they do it is unique to them.
Wow, that's amazing. One of the things that first popped into my head when you were talking about that, because I mean, we've seen and heard of people that channel, before. And this thing that you were talking about just a couple of minutes ago, Magenta, where if we ask you a question and you don't know the answer, they step in. I mean, is it just like within a blink of an eye that they just step in? Because most times it's almost like people, I mean, there again, maybe going back to the theater, it's almost kind of like they have to get into character or make that communication or make an effort, to get in communication. But I mean, you made it sound like it's almost blink of an eye. Oh, okay, well, Magenta doesn't know this. We're here for her. We got her.
Okay, what a good question. Okay, so early on, I would, when I was first communicating with White Spirit, early on, I mean, he was there, but I kind of had to learn how to kind of shift my energy to connect with him. But because I've been doing this since 1993, and they've trained me so well, it is me and them. It's not really a case of we're here, the 9 are here. It's me. I have to shift my energy. And the thing is, when I first kind of learned about channeling, I did see other channels work, and a lot of them, as you say, would get into character and they change their voice, and they would sort of be this. And I thought, oh, I don't want to do that. When I first bought White Spirits through, one of the training sessions I went through with my brother, he was saying, can you come into, Magenta's body and communicate with me that way? And I'm like, oh, I don't know if I want to let White Spirit in my body. It was too close. I always perceived him as being outside of my body. But I learned to do this. And I understand why people change their frequency and why they get into the zone and they might move around and make some funny noises, or suddenly their voice changes, their face changes. I understand why. It is a change in frequency. You do have to attune your frequency. And when that first happened to me, I didn't like it. I didn't want to look different. I didn't want to look silly. I didn't want to just look like, I said to White Spirit at the time, if I'm going to do this, I want to be still me. And what I did at first was always close my eyes. I could not communicate with White Spirit with my eyes open. I always had my eyes closed. And then I could see him so much more clearly. And obviously he would, or my brain would, change the feelings within the body. That was the very first thing that happened when I made the connection in meditation. It wasn't just a visual clairvoyant or clairaudient connection. It was the whole body. The first time the higher chakras were experienced, if you like. It was an energy moving through the body. I guess also you could call this Kundalini. It would be the same thing. So there were all of these changes taking place, but I decided very early on that I wanted to just be me. And it was quite a while, really, before White Spirit taught me to speak to him and channel him with my eyes open. And I had to then learn to change my vision, and I didn't want to change my voice. I wanted to just be me. But having said all that, anyone who does know me really well, who sees me sort of in real life and not necessarily on the internet, always can, especially if they're spiritually aware themselves and psychic, they can tell when I'm channeling and when I'm me, because there is a subtle change. It's very subtle because I didn't want to change and be so different. Right. Nothing against the wonderful channels that do that, though. I think it's fabulous. I was just kind of too shy, really, to be one of these flamboyant, theatrical channels. Right. Despite being in the theatre myself, I just felt like it wasn't me to do that.
Well, I tell you what, we have to run into a break. We're going to continue this discussion, which is fascinating. I love your story, by the way. Twin Flame Divine Fire continues with Magenta Pixie in just a moment on Truth Frequency Radio. Be right back. Welcome back to Twin Flame Divine Fire on Truth Frequency Radio, and we are joined today on Twin Flame Divine Fire by Magenta Pixie, and very, very compelling first half hour to me. I loved it. I love the description of her way of channeling as opposed to others, but I mean, I can see where that would totally be a unique evolution to each channeler.
I think it's really, really interesting, the support system that you had from the time that you were a child, too.
Oh, my gosh, yeah.
And we notice a lot of people that we have on, they were kind of out there, and their parents used to say, oh, don't say anything, or don't let people know that you're different. And it sounds like from a very, very young age that you had a lot of support from your father and from your brother.
Well, I had a lot of support from my father from day one about this, yes, because he was the same. My brother and we didn't really realize that we were the same. We actually were very much at loggerheads as children, always fighting, always arguing.
Oh, okay.
And the whole coming together with my brother was completely divinely orchestrated, because I was looking for a flat, which you would call an apartment in America, and I had someone to go into this flat share with me because I couldn't afford to rent this flat on my own. And she dropped out a few days before I was due to sign the contract, and I was so upset that I would lose this flat. So I went around asking all my friends, do any of you want to do a flat share with me? No. And I didn't like where I was, and I really wanted this flat. And I remember going round to speak to my brother who still lived with my mother and my stepfather. And I said to him, I think I'm going to lose this flat. I'm really upset, but I can't find anyone to share with me. And then he looked at me and he said, well, I've been thinking I'd quite like to leave home and don't really want to be with my parents anymore. So would you consider me? And I looked at my brother and he looked at me, and it's like all the years of arguing and really, really at loggerheads with one another. And it was like this other entity was just bringing us together. It was absolutely meant to be. And I said, oh my goodness, we are supposed to do this. I don't know why. So of course the whole spiritual training for me, this fast, is what the Nine call fast tracking, that occurred within those 6 months with me and my brother renting this flat. That was what sort of propelled us both, I guess, in a spiritual journey. And we literally came together for those 6 months of this. And I was with him all the time. 24/7. We went to college together, we came home together, we went to the same courses together, we went to the same talks together, we read the same books. We were together intensively for 6 months. And the Nine call this a working spiritual partner. Every spiritual starseed individual who wishes to take this journey, or is destined to take this journey, or has chosen to take this journey, whichever way you want to look at it, will have a series sometimes, or one, or however it manifests for them, spiritual partners that you work with. And you don't realize you're in a working spiritual partnership until you're in it, and then you understand that you are in it. And of course the twin flame is the ultimate kind of working spiritual partnership. And I remember my brother and I, we did actually feel that we were working in that way as a kind of preparation for our own soulmate twin flame connection, which would be a relationship. In fact, we were so united at that time that people thought we were actually together. We went to college together, we went back to college as adult students, and the amount of girls that had approached my brother and said, oh, I really like you, but you're always with your girlfriend. And he was like, no, she's my sister, And even the girl that he was with and that he was in a serious relationship with and is the mother of his daughter, she actually came up to me and said, we made friends, and she said, I feel really bad, but I'm really attracted to your boyfriend. And I'm like, what? I don't have a boyfriend. What, the guy with the long hair that you're always with? And I said, that's my brother. And she was so happy, and next minute they got together. So people thought we were a couple. We were absolutely inseparable in the way that we walked that spiritual journey. And I'm not kidding you, every single day was filled from morning till night with synchronicity and learning and connection. Of course, that's the ascension path. That's what the starseeds are going through now across the world. Maybe not every single day, because that intensity is a period of years rather than 6 months. But for us, in those 6 months, and it was glorious. And when it ended, when life took us in other directions, I kind of felt this coming back down to earth, and I was really sad. But then I would look back at those 6 months and think, you know what, that was just crazy. Was any of that even real? Were we both just insane at that time, And all this talk of ascension and things happening on the planet, honestly, we would get together afterwards and think, do you remember that mad time? And we thought we were going to go through the ascension and that we might connect with extraterrestrials and this might happen. And we'd both laugh about it. And it wasn't until the Nine continued to teach me psychically and spiritually and train me, but they didn't really talk about the ascension again until 2008. And it was just, I'd forgotten about it really. And it was just this calm, matter-of-fact, just nonchalant conversation I'm having with the Nine one day. And they say to me, do you remember that time when we told you it was a dress rehearsal? I'm like, yes, I've never forgotten that. Okay, well, just to let you know that it's now performance. I'm like, what? Now?
Talk about a long time for a callback.
How many
Holy
years
mackerel.
was that?
Well, that was 1993 that they told me it was a dress rehearsal, and 2008 when they said it's showtime.
Oh, wow.
So I'd given up. I just thought, and then I'm like, I couldn't believe I'd heard it, because we thought that the performance time would come, within a few months. We didn't think we'd be waiting almost, 20 years or something. So yeah, I was freaking out and like, what do you mean? It's now. And they're teaching me again, relax, breathe, remember the connection. I'll go, okay, ground yourself and all this. Yes, okay. Because if you go too excited when you're in communication, and it's the same with astral projection, out of body experience, Kundalini, anything, meditation, if you go too excited, and of course it's normal to get excited because you are coming across amazing synchronicities and information that you just can't believe. But if you get too excited, it kind of, the nine call this, like, it burns out the circuit, it short circuits the signal, the DNA signal. It's too much fire. You must be calm. But if you're too flat, if you're too sort of, oh, well, that's not real, it's just my imagination, you don't have any fire at all. Mm-hmm. You must get this balance. And I'm sure the fact that you call your show the flame, I'm sure you're aware of what I mean. So they would teach me to be calm, and then they said to me, well, I said to them, what do you want me to do? You know, what shall I do? I mean, I'm supposed to do something, aren't I? And they said, tell everyone that you speak to us. I said, what? And I hadn't done this, you see. I still had friends. I still have friends that don't know. But at the time, I mean, family members as well, that, you know, lots of people I was friends with for years, family members that had no idea. It was a secret, it was private, and it's something I did when I was with the like-minded individual, which was few and far between. My brother, my father, and a handful of friends. And when they said, tell everyone, what, tell everyone I speak to you? Like, who do you want me to tell? And, you know, everybody, the world. And I'm like, what? How am I supposed to do this? And they gestured to the internet. And I'm like, oh, okay, I'm supposed to go online. And so that's what led me to, sorry, I've got some people outside. It's a very hot day here in the UK, and everyone's out in the sun, and I've got my windows open, and we've got some people shrieking and screaming outside, having a good time. I don't know, maybe they're getting ready to go to the pub or something, as it's the evening now.
Oh, that's a good reason to get excited, yeah.
Well, not for me, but yeah, for them.
Yeah, I see her. I gave that up quite a while ago.
For the 3D world, they like the pubs and the clubs and things, don't they? So yes, I went online and I started to hunt around to see if I could find a sort of a spiritual group of people, and I'm looking for a few weeks, and eventually I stumbled across YouTube, and I came across a guy. It was Risa. He was called Risa5, and I saw, and we're still friends. We don't speak that often, but we're still friends, and every so often we're still in touch. And I saw he'd got these lovely sort of weavy colors that were playing on the video with his sort of stream of consciousness. And I said to Daniel, who was very into sort of art and creation, and he'd been watching a lot of YouTube and was interested in going on YouTube, but not necessarily like this. He wanted me to write scripts and for us to do like funny shows, and I just yeah, all right, I'll do that whenever, you know, and I just didn't get round to it. Then I approached him and said, look, you know, you wanted to do something on YouTube, well, could you do something like this? And I showed him Rice's video. Could you make these sort of, you know, lovely background colors if I bring forward my channeling? And he said yes. And the interesting thing is I had never channeled in front of Daniel, and yet we'd been together by that time, I know, 8 years. And wow. I talked about it with him, but I'd never channeled in front of him or shared the channeling till that point. So that, again, was, you know, I guess when I look back, it's a big thing. I'm coming out to the world and to my own partner and showing everyone, hey, this is what I do, you know. So it was a huge step, a really huge step, personally as well as globally. So anyway, that's what we did, and I bought the first channeling forward in 2008, and that's when I started the YouTube channel.
It was amazing too. I remember right before Alan and I came together, Magenta, I had been doing research because we had this really we'll say our dress rehearsal was a bit shaky. We didn't do so well. And we had to go off on our own paths for a while. And after
our dress rehearsals span even more time than that,
yeah,
so to speak.
Yeah.
I mean, in a manner of speaking.
So we had about a 24-year sabbatical, even after we'd had a set of twins. And then we started to come back together, and the connection was just so, it was synchronistic, and it was almost eerie. And I came across one of your videos, and it was actually on Twin Flames. And
Yeah.
it was just beautiful. I mean, you're watching, as you say, the videos that you were putting out and the flow and the way they moved. You were so transfixed. It was like it was a code in itself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And that I didn't know that at first, but it was much later when I realized that the whole video, not just me and my channeling, but Daniel, and he would put visuals to the channeling without even listening to the channeling. He would just get the visuals done while I'm recording the channeling, and they would marry up. So I realized that we had a co-creation. But even then, I didn't realize I was connecting in a twin flame capacity. That took a lot longer. And as I would say to you, you know, everything you described, classic twin flame. And the reason being is when you make that connection, the energy is so profound and it's so intense that when you're predominantly in the linear experience, in that carbon-based third dimensional experience, it can short circuit, it can burn out, you can't hold it. It's like Kundalini, but you're sharing it in that spiritual working relationship, and it takes time. And often twin flames will come together, move away for sometimes weeks, if not years, come back together, move away, come back together, until eventually they can hold that fire, hold that charge. They can handle that DNA change. They're rooted within it, and then they're ready to be together. Another way it can work, which was more like myself and Daniel, was you're in a relationship, but you're taking your spiritual journey alone, and your partner's taking his spiritual journey alone, and you're in a kind of a 3D relationship, knowing that there's something spiritual going on, but you're not quite sure what it is, and it may show itself every now and again, and you may have glimpses, and it's not until later. So you're not going into that sort of raised Kundalini energy together as twin flames. You're doing this on your own, but you still have the support of one another. So the potential is there. The potential for twin flame energy between you is there. And then eventually you come into this sort of new evolution within your relationship. And the way to know if you are in a relationship like this is to simply look at the creativity between you. Are you creating something? Are you always in a state of creation and growth? Are you constantly learning from one another? If so, you are in a twin flame connected relationship. If the relationship is, monotonous, the same things, routine, there's no creativity, you're finding your creativity when you're apart without coming together or sharing that, then that could mean there is no potential there, or the potential's there and the twin flame connection is yet to come. And you will know, because if the love is still there, and I'm not talking about attraction or third dimensional emotional love, I'm talking about something more transcendent than that, something more unconditional. That is something that will show potential for a twin flame connection. But creativity is the clue. Because with Daniel and I, even before this realization came to us, the creativity was always there from the very start. Even if you aren't necessarily sitting down and having spiritual discussions, that creativity is always there in some form.
It's amazing. I love hearing her talk about Daniel.
Yeah, yeah.
I was like, do we go into that? Because we already know they're twin flames. So it's exciting for you to bring that up.
It's interesting because I recently did an interview with Todd Medina of Solargy, and he asked us both on. He wanted us both. He said, would you come on and do like a twin flame show? And I'm like, yes. Daniel didn't want to. It's like sometimes you can be in a twin flame, well, not sometimes, always, you're in a twin flame relationship, and sometimes you can feel that you are in so much synchronicity and so harmonious, but that does not mean you are going to stay in that harmonious flow 24/7. And there may be times when there's disharmony because you're trying to work something out. And when Todd Medina asked us to both come on, we were in a moment of disharmony. Now I know, and that is because the female has a sense of the relationship as a whole, whereas the male, and I'm not sort of drawing this down to actual necessarily gender females or gender males, but the individual that is the male energy in the relationship will compartmentalize the relationship into sections. So if the section is disharmonious, often the male will think, well, we're in a disharmonious relationship. But the female can see the sections and see the whole and think, well, on the whole, it's harmonious. So for me, I'm quite happy to go on to an interview and show the disharmony, because I know that the individuals listening would see the harmony as well, and they would see the connection. But Daniel felt that no, he didn't feel he was ready to come on, and I don't know. I think maybe he's not ready. Maybe he will one day come and do a show with me, but we'll see.
That is so funny that you say it like that, because I don't know about you, San, but the first thing I thought about
was the box.
was Mark Gungor. Have you ever seen that, the male brain versus the female brain? Magenta?
No, I
haven't
seen that.
Do your
No.
If you have a pen and paper, write this down. The guy's name is Mark Gungor, Gungor, and he's a pastor, and he talks exactly. But oh my God, he is so funny. But he says it so well. He said exactly what you're saying. About the males compartmentalizing everything. Like, okay, this is the food box. This is the work box.
This is the nothing box.
And then we have the nothing box. Oh my God!
Yeah.
If you can watch that and not laugh, I don't know what you are.
Oh wow!
He said it beautifully, but that's the first thing that popped into my head.
And we've come across Twin Flames before, and we told him you really need to watch this, because it's like the brains are wired completely different, and we'll be in this moment of just complete bliss, and all of a sudden we just contract. So we've got into the flow of saying, okay, we're contracting. And then when we go into expansion, it's like we're having this amazing experience, but those contractions can be really, really hard.
Well, and that's funny that Magenta said that too, because, I mean, you're that way. We are that way.
Yes.
Sandra can sit there and look at stuff on spirituality, I think, all day, every day, and I almost have like an unseen, unknown daily limit. It's like, okay, I take so much in. You've got 5 gallons in the bucket. Anything else that you put in, it's going to fall out on the floor.
Yeah. Well, I said to Daniel, if you're waiting for us to be in a perfect twin flame, harmonious, permanent, infinite, unconditional love, and then you'll come on a show with me, then you'll be waiting forever, because that's not how it works. And I don't want to go on a show and say, hey, we're twin flames and everything's perfect, we're madly in love, we have all this amazing synchronicity, because yes, all that's true, but you're still a 3D relationship. You're still going to get annoyed with each other and moan at each other and have little arguments. I mean, we're in a 3D reality, so you can't try to come across as being this perfect, amazing, spiritual couple or individuals sitting under a willow tree surrounded by crystals all day. It's yes, that's part of it, but you need to show that you are real. And the twin flame relationship is the most beautiful, the most rewarding, the most blissful, and the most wonderful protection and love, but it also can be the most challenging as well, because it will be a complete mirror to you, and anything in you that is not dealt with, anything that hasn't come to the fore, a light will be shone on that. So, and you can be annoyed, like, hang on a minute, I'm not ready to look at that part of my shadow.
All right.
I'll look at that part of my shadow when I'm good and ready, and you're shining a light on it. And the men and the women do this. And also another interesting thing about the compartmentalization and also the woman seeing the whole is we're teaching one another to do this. So the woman who has a female brain and a female nervous system is learning to see the compartmentalization and the focus and the forward moving energy of the male, so she can balance her divine feminine and sacred masculine within her, and the male is doing the same thing. So the twin flame relationships are assisting one another to go through their own unity as well. So
It's quite the process. We've talked about it several times.
And we say the same thing,
And we-
though, too. If you think that this is going to be like, talking about sitting around in a bed of crystals under a willow
Yeah.
tree and the choir
Yeah.
of angels, blah, every time you
Yeah.
speak, that ain't happening.
no, definitely not.
But
But
there's-
it does happen sometimes, and
It
when it does,
does.
it's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
And there is synchronicity, and there is wonder, and there is beauty, and it is wonderful. But it is not like that all the time. And sometimes you can actually think, goodness me, what's going on here? Am I supposed to even be with this person? Or you can be so triggered. But if you are a spiritually aware thinking individual, you place everything and think, okay, this is happening because of this. And if you've got communication between you and you can sit down and talk, that higher connection will always come back. That's the thing. No matter how challenging things get between you, the love sustains through it all because it's an energy that is beyond physical, linear, third dimensional love. It's higher dimensional love. It's unconditional love. Even if you think it's conditional, it's unconditional love energy, and it sustains outside of you. When you enter a twin flame or soulmate relationship, there is a third entity created. You're three, not two, actually. You go into the Trinity. And the third entity is the relationship itself, the higher aspect. So you have, one partner in the relationship, you have the second partner in the relationship, and you have the relationship itself, which becomes a third personality, a third intelligence, and that sustains. If that third entity is sustaining, then you are sustaining. And the way to look at this in a geometric sense is to look at the Vesica Pisces, which absolutely depicts the twin flame frequency. You have one side and the other side, and the little bit in the middle where they merge together and make that sort of Trinity fish shape. That's the third intelligence. That's the third entity. That's the creation. And when I say creation, it doesn't have to be something you are creating. It usually manifests as that. But it's creativity itself as an energy. That is the geometric presentation of the twin flame.
Okay, well, it is about time for us. This is fascinating.
I know, right?
This is really, I think it's good stuff.
Magenta, you're so fun.
Yeah. So we are coming up on a break, and we are going to be back with more Twin Flame Divine Fire with our dear guest, Magenta Pixie, in just a moment on Truth Frequency Radio. Hang tight. Well, welcome back to Twin Flame Divine Fire and Truth Frequency Radio. Our special guest today, Magenta Pixie. And before we get back with more fascinating and just flat fun discussion with her.
Well, as we're going back in, the discussion has just been amazing. And before we came on with Magenta, we listened to one of her videos. And it was like, oh my goodness, she said that. She was so spot on. About what we call either the 0 point or the void. And when we go into it, we're always talking about how it almost feels like a stagnant energy, or it's really hard to describe. It's almost like everything is muffled. Everything is it just like it's not moving. And we really wanted Magenta to go into her explanation of the 0 point. And it was just so amazing. Can you do that for us, Magenta?
Oh, well, I shall try. Obviously, the information came through from the 9, so I brought that forward. And they when I'm in that flow of connecting with them, they explain things so well. But from my communications with them, so there are many ways to explain this, but it's kind of similar to what I was saying about the twin flame. You have the male and then the female energy, and then between them it creates a third personality, and that can be looked at geometrically within the Vesica Pisces. It's a similar thing, but really we're taking, say, matter and antimatter. So we could be taking this physical linear universe and the non-physical universe, the inner worlds, if you like. And there's like a polarity, because one is matter, one is antimatter. But there's a point where the two merge. There is a merge between matter and antimatter. The thing is, it isn't really a merge. You say it's a point where the two meet, but really they don't meet. They don't merge. It's just that's the way to explain this for our third dimensional brain to understand it.
Okay.
It's really this null zone, this 0 point, in the higher reality, it doesn't exist because it's not there. It's 0. But we have to get the sense of this through our third dimensional brain somehow. So we see it as a thing or a place or some kind of substance. What it is just literally pure creation, but it's the potential for. So it's everything in a potentiated state. It is the potential for all things. It is what is known as a free energy stream. And it is when one polarity comes together with another polarity in complete balance, and when both those polarities, as I say, merge, it creates this third space or third entity or third substance. It's a plasma. The 9 call this the cosmic fire, the eternal flame. It is the divine creation from the twin flame, and that's the true twin flame. The true twin flame is not necessarily a man and a woman in a relationship, or anyone in a relationship. The same pattern is there for non-heterosexual couples as well. But it's not just about relationships. The true twin flame is the polarity of the masculine and the polarity of the feminine, and that which created that polarity is created by the polarity, which is the eternal flame, which is the source energy, and that is the void, the null zone. It is the still point, and it's potentiated creation. It's the place to go when you want to create, and you do feel as though everything has stopped. So it can feel like, it's a bit sort of still, but it doesn't feel like nothing, and it doesn't feel flat, because there's something there, and it's kind of like this sort of still reverberating sort of electrical, mysterious, dark point, and it's very difficult to put into words how that makes you feel. When you work with this, when you go into this space and you go into the steps for creation, that's the same thing as the Merkaba, the Kundalini, which is why the 9 call this the grand cosmic Merkaba. They explain it as if you were to see like a galactic vortex, let's just say the galactic core, and you're going down and down and down into this infinite spiral as you're moving round and round and round. There is no beginning and end point to this spiral. It's infinite. But if you were to imagine it going down and down and down into the tiniest little point, coming to an end point, there has to be a point of stillness before it turns back round and comes back the other way. The thing is, this is an ever-moving toroidal sphere, an ever-moving spiral. There is no end point to it, but there are points that we can measure within our understanding, so that our third dimensional linear brain understands this. There are points that we can sort of measure within that toroidal sphere that would be the point where the direction and the friction and the momentum goes the other way, and it can't just go one way and then instantly go the other way. It has to go one way and stop and go the other way. Now when it stops, that's instant. It's not a still point from the perspective of looking at the momentum. It's constantly moving. But when you go into that point, the point where the two directions change, that is the point that is everything. That is source, that is the God point, the 0 point, the still point. And when you stop and look at that, everything is moving so fast, faster than your brain can possibly imagine. And it is also the most still moment that your brain can ever imagine. It's still and movement simultaneously. And that is how you get momentum for creation. It's a difficult one to explain because there are so many ways to explain what it is. But for us personally, we can utilize that still point, and we can find that still point, that 0 point, that null zone. When we imagine that the masculine aspect of us and the feminine aspect of us are coming together and merging, and we find the central point with that, we can find this in movement as well, something like yoga or Tai Chi, some kind of movement that works with energy. So we can utilize this, and that's where we become our most creative. Often you'll find that when people are creating something, they will get all the ideas come up when they've been asleep, because they're in the still point within that brainwave state when they're dreaming, and they'll wake up and a whole book is there in front of them, or a poem, or a dance moves, or whatever it may be. So we can all access that still point. It's within all of us. But to explain it on a cosmic level, there are an infinite number of ways to explain what it is, but one can say matter and antimatter, masculine and feminine, magnetic and electrical, and it's the point between the two. And if we were to give a name to the substance, it would be plasma or fire, cosmic fire. And the reason why the 9 say it's fire is because when they show it to me, or when I remote view it, however you want to word that, it looks clairvoyantly like a flame. It looks like fire. And that is the kinetic momentum. It's a stillness that's moving and vibrating, and it's pure potential. And it's created by the memories of all that is. It's the memories of Source. And where are those memories of Source? Those memories of Source are within us, within all of us. And the point of us being here, or one of the points of us being here, there are many on different levels, but one of the most profound reasons we're here is to learn to hold our memories, to sustain them, to keep them in a state in a state where they can be utilized, not in a state where they dissolve, but in a state where they remain in this momentum. They individualize and become thought entities in their own right, so that when we leave the body, whether it's in astral projection or whether it's through actually the death experience, or through ascension, which is what we're going through right now on this planet, we retain the memories outside of the physical body, or with the physical body, depending on which path we take. We retain those memories, and those memories become part of that structure, and those memories create this plasma, eternal flame, cosmic fire. That is then utilized to then create other things like universes and galaxies and suns and moons and stars and planets. So we, with our memories, are giving birth to galaxies and stars and dimensions and planetary bodies, and what they are, the substance they are made from, is giving birth to us, because we're born and we incarnate from that substance. It's like this cycle. So that's why the 9 say to me, you will become a star or a series of stars, and you give birth to stars and a series of stars as those stars give birth to you. It's as above, so below, but one must remember so below as above. So that was all what came through. And it was interesting that particular download, because it came through on the solstice in the evening, and it's been a bit sort of this flat energy, but not flat. It was like something was happening, something was moving, but all day. And it was like, gosh, it feels really nice, and it feels really sort of still, but like there's something there. And it's an unusual stillness. It's not really a flat sort of nothing's happening. It's a flat nothing's happening, but there's some kind of potentiated energy. And then it was that evening that this download came through, because I experienced, as I was in this thought process, I experienced this Merkaba, went into the Merkaba, and I know that I'd experienced this before, but I didn't realize it was the Merkaba. I'd given it other names, even though I was talking about the Merkaba for so long. And then the 9 said, you are in the Merkaba. And I said, oh, this is the Merkaba. Okay. And then I saw all these other individuals also going into their Merkaba, and then I saw the Grand Cosmic Merkaba. And I turned to Daniel and I looked at him. I said, the Grand Cosmic Merkaba. And he's like, yeah, whatever. She's being crazy. I said, no, it's a download. I have to go upstairs and bring it forward. I raced upstairs to my bedroom and grabbed my, I can't remember if I grabbed pen and paper. Yes, I think it was pen and paper. Sometimes I bring forward the download on paper and sometimes on the laptop, and just wrote it all out. And yes, it's fascinating because the Grand Cosmic Merkaba was created by us, us together, the starseeds. It's so wonderful what we're doing, the power that we have together. And yet none of us said beforehand, I mean, some might have done, but I certainly didn't say beforehand, hey, everyone across the world, all the starseeds, let's all get into our Merkaba tonight. It happens, it just happens. You have that intention of, I want to move into the ascension timeline. I want this planet to go into the Liberty templates so that this world can become free. I want the truth to come out within this planet, and so that future generations can experience a free reality. And let's bring down the free energy and all these technologies and everything that have been hidden from us. And we all have this within us. When we're starseeds, we all have this yearning, not in an angry way. Sometimes you can get angry, but we have this just innate knowing that this is what we want. And when these portal moments come about, these high energy portal moments such as the solstice, all together so many of us went into that moment, that Merkaba zone, that no point zone. And the Nine said it was created through emotional alchemy. Through so many people going through an emotional alchemical state where they're transmuting one emotion to another. And that's because the starseeds do this so quickly. If a starseed becomes depressed or upset or angry or any of those emotions, they are learning so quickly to process them. They are integrating them really well on such a mass scale. And so they're going into emotional alchemy because they're always in a state of transmutation of these emotions, and that creates this kinetic charge within the body that holds these memory fields and holds this energy, and it's taking the starseeds into this 0 point field all the time. They're moving in and out of this. And when it happens with a planetary cosmic celestial alignment like the solstice, then you have this Grand Cosmic Merkaba, which was activated on the 21st of June, that day.
It was funny because we had an event on the 22nd last Saturday. Mm-hmm. And before all that, on the 18th, there was this download was coming through, and I'm like, I don't understand what's going on. But I get on the computer and Alan's like, I'm exhausted. I'm going to go to bed. And I happened to notice something on the earthquakes. The earthquakes were going on. And I went to the seismographs to take a look at it and seen that Antarctica had been completely blacked out. And I thought, well, that's kind of unusual. So I'm looking at it, and I look at the timestamp UTC time, and it was 02.02.02. And I thought, oh, that's strange. It was 10:02 Eastern time. And I heard, look up code. What? Look up code? Okay, so I went to look up code and found out that it was called the dead code. And so I got a hold of somebody and I said, okay, what is dead code to you? You write code. And it is, the program is still in place, even though you can't write over it and you can't get rid of it. It's still there. So it's like a convergence. And I was like, okay, so we're entering into a convergence time again. Well, that prompted me. Alan sat up and he goes, honey, look at the moon. It was really bright and it was pink and it looked full on the 18th. And I'm like, let me go to the phases of the moon. This is what was bizarre. We go to the phases of the moon, and it was on June the 12th. And I'm like, but today's the 18th. So I thought, well, maybe, I just click on the little calendar and go to the 18th. It said this page does not exist yet, and backed it up all the way to the 12th. It was stuck on the 12th of June. And I was like, what is going on here? And the next day, everything was fine. Luckily, I screenshotted everything because I've learned that if you don't take the download and screenshot it, you're going to lose it. And
Yeah.
I just thought it was amazing that one of the things that came through was this energy aligned with what was going on in 2012.
Yes.
And looking at it, and I was like, oh my goodness. And then the 21st and the 21st, the 22nd, 23rd, and 24th were kind of that lull time we're talking about. And the 25th is our shift date. And so it was like all of this made sense in my head, but when I say it, it sounds crazy. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, I know exactly what you mean. And actually, when you were talking, I was looking at the clock and it was 2022. When you go through these experiences that are coming from that higher connection and this expansion, you're going through a meaningful subjective experience. Everything ties up inside you. You connect the dots, if you know what I mean. You work out all this synchronicity. When you explain this to someone else, it can sound, when you're explaining your own meaningful subjective experience, you're trying to explain what you have experienced subjectively, and you're talking about synchronicity. It can sound very crazy, especially to a 3D thinking person. I mean, they would simply look at you and think you are, and people do with me, people who know me, when I start to talk like this, who are 3D thinking people, they will just think, oh, she's off on one. She's completely crazy, To somebody who is the same as you, they will understand that you're discussing your meaningful subjective experience. They still might not be able to fully grasp what you are grasping from a subjective standpoint. But what you are going through here is the synchronicity, the higher guidance, does not tell you everything. You don't pick up everything. You're living in a 3D reality or transitioning into 4D or 5D, but we're still living in that linear reality. So we have to work for our knowledge. It's not something, everything isn't going to just drop into our head. We have to do research, which is why sometimes you might hear one word or one sentence or wake up with some kind of knowing in your head or a song, but you have to follow it. This is your meaningful subjective experience, which every star faces at times like the solstice. And it isn't necessarily just on the solstice day. It can be a few days before and a few days after, or even a week or so before or a week after, because you're going into a time period. It isn't just one day. It isn't just 24 hours. It stretches beyond that. And yes, everything is all of these points are linking in with the 21st of December 2012, because that was when we had a shift point that has been held as a cohesive memory, a cohesive knowing for thousands and thousands of years, because it's part of the Mayan calendar. The 2012 point was seen when the Mayans started to work with their own calendar. So that 2012 point is so charged because of all of the memory, as in, when I say memory, I don't just mean something you remember. I mean, we perceive these activated awareness within us as memory. So it gives it more weight, more charge, more mass. 2012, and then the physical reality, the matter, matches that antimatter thought. And so every time we have a solstice spike and equinoxes and other alignments like the eclipses, we are moving into this no time, this 0 point. We're all coming together in that point, and it's creating like this portal, this wormhole stargate, which is no time, meaning we're back in 2012. It's the 21st of December 2012. It's not going to happen just once. That cosmic moment, the event, the rapture, this wave that's coming, this ribbon of energy that's coming, it isn't happening just once. It's happening once because it's one stargate But to us here in linear time, we're experiencing event after event after event after event as multiple events. But it is one event. It's true. The event is one event from the higher reality. And that one event was the 21st of December 2012. But that occurred on the 21st of June 2019. And it will occur again on the 21st of June 2020. And all of the other equinoxes and solstices and eclipses and sometimes the full moons as well. And whenever you decide to raise the Kundalini within you and go into your Merkaba, you are always in the 2012 portal, the Stargate. And the reason why it's 2012 is because it's the Mayan calendar measurement. So it was deliberately placed as that. It was a magical placement. It doesn't mean 2012 only. That's literal. That's a literal interpretation. The end of the world means the end of one dimensional phase and the move into the second dimensional phase. The end of the world is in 2012. That is true, but it's a literal interpretation. It doesn't mean literally. 2012 is now. And it'll be next year. 2012 is the label for that time period, which is around about the year 2012 and several years before and several years after, with the sort of the point, the calendar point in the Gregorian calendar being the 21st of December 2012, the winter solstice. And obviously the 12-12-12 as well was a very high portal date because you had 3 12s.
Right.
Everything is connected to the geometry. So what you went through is your own personal experience of this grand cosmic Merkaba that the 9 are talking about. You were in that Merkaba at that moment when you were looking at those numbers and what you found, and the whole Antarctica thing as well. There's something there is something there that is in shadow that will come to light, and so you are also being drawn to that as well. So we have to research. We have to research our meaningful subjective experiences and think, okay, we have to research what that means. And then if we are in alignment with that, we'll find the answers we're looking for.
That was very enlightening.
I know,
that was
right?
extremely enlightening. And unfortunately, we have to go to break. We still have another half hour to go, though, and we want to get into her books, especially her latest book as well. Twin Flame Divine Fire continues on the other side with Magenta Pixie right here on Truth Frequency Radio in just a moment. We are back with Magenta Pixie on Twin Flame Divine Fire. And Magenta, I know that you've got a number of books out, and we're going to get to your latest one at the very end of this. But Masters of the Matrix, Divine Architecture and the Starseed Template, the Infinite Helix and the Emerald Flame, and of course your latest one, the Black Box Program, and the Rose Gold Flame is Antidote. Could you give us a brief overview of each of those books, and especially let's get into the Black Box Program towards the end of that, and the Rose Gold Flame is Antidote, because I think everyone's really kind of concerned with what's going on now, especially with the 5G that is already coming out, and it's been implemented in a number of large cities over here in the States. I would assume maybe London too, I don't know. But could you get into those? And I mean, you know, we're here to promote things that are going to assist people who have either been on their journey for a while or maybe they're just brand new to it.
Okay, well, the first 3 books kind of follow on from one another. If you're a beginner in spirituality or a beginner working with geometry and the Matrix, then I would suggest you read them in order. If you've been on a spiritual path for many years and you've been working with geometry, you don't need to read them in order. You can just read them however you want. The book, the Black Box Program, is a separate book on its own. So the first 3 are really using, I guess the first book is using what is known as the law of attraction, which the 9 call the magnetic law of attraction, rather than explaining how this works or how to work with this in a 5th dimensional sense through visualization of entities or ascended masters, or visualizing the things that you would like to come into your reality, or visualizing your timeline. It's using more of a 6th dimensional presentation. So it's using geometry. So the first book is really learning what you are. Masters of the Matrix, becoming the architect of your reality and activating the original human template. So basically, what are you? Well, you are an energetic structure. You are a matrix. And this book teaches matrix awareness. So you become aware of what you are as a matrix, and then matrix mastery. That's why it's called Masters of the Matrix. You are taught in this book mastery over that matrix. So it's, as I said, it's the law of attraction, but not quite in the sort of simplified way that the law of attraction is often presented. It's more about going into that 0 point place and finding pure creativity. But this is also, Masters of the Matrix also teaches about hijacking of energy structures and how to become immune to that. So that goes on this planet and has done for many thousands of years, and how to come into immunity from that and thus freedom within yourself and sovereignty. So that's Masters of the Matrix. The second book, and I didn't plan these at all. I mean, these just came. The first book, I thought I was bringing forward information from another video, and it went on and on and on. And then I realized, oh, goodness me, this is not going to be a video. This is going to be a book. So I didn't know this. The second book, I wanted to write another book. I wanted to channel another book, but I didn't know it would follow on from the first at all. I didn't know what the subject matter would be. The second book, Divine Architecture and the Starseed Template, Matrix Memory Triggers for Ascension. So this is more about, the first book is about matrix mastery and matrix awareness. This book is about matrix architecture. This is you building your matrix. So as you build what you are, your energy system, you become much more connected with it. You become deeply aware of it. You are creating yourself, going through the steps of creation of yourself. So it's working in a sort of a higher, deeper way with yourself as a matrix structure. And there are several questions in that book. There's a long chapter on twin flames and what the twin flame really is, as in how the different twin flames can manifest, how you can have John and Jane as a twin flame couple in one timeline where they manifest the twin flame energy between them, and John and Jane in another timeline where they don't manifest the twin flame energy between them, meaning a couple can be twin flames in one reality and not in another, depending on how they work with the energy between them. So it goes into sort of destiny and all the different permeations of twin flames. And there are other questions asked about, the Merkaba itself and how to activate it. And so that's Divine Architecture and the Starseed Template. So the Infinite Helix and the Emerald Flame. This was interesting. This started off, I actually did a video, I think a couple of years ago now, Dark Deeds Pole Shift, Indigo Revolution and the Law of One. So it was February 24th, 2018. Dark Deeds, Pole Shift, Indigo Revolution and the Law of One. I did that video. Mm-hmm. And that video had a lot of complex teachings and information within it. So I decided to write what I thought would be an analysis of that. So I've done some analysis videos where I just sort of speak to the camera and go through the channeled material and analyze the material as me rather than as the nine in the way that I interpret that. But I decided to write this down as this was quite a complex video. And the information from the nine started to go in another direction and started to talk about the emerald flame and the cosmic fire and the goddess. And it turns out that the intention I put out was to do an analysis of one of my videos. Yeah. That actually did occur. The whole book is an analysis of a different video. And that I didn't even discover this until over halfway through the book. I did another video called The Emerald Gateway. I woke up one morning and the nine said to me, the Emerald Gateway is now open. And then I brought forward the channeling for that. This entire book is an analysis of that video, but I don't find that out until halfway through the book. And it's interesting, when I was actually channeling it and I realized my intention to analyze one of the videos had worked, but it wasn't the video I intended to analyze. It was a different one. And I actually started crying because the realization was so profound and the channeling. And I started to write and said, the 9 was saying, and she is crying tears as she writes this. All that's in the book as well. So this is more, it carries on from the other 2. So this, as I said, the first one, Matrix Awareness and Matrix Mastery. The second book, Matrix Architecture. This is Matrix Transportation. This teaches you to transport your matrix. So you've become aware of it, you've mastered it, you have built it, and now you are going to use it to fly. It is a vehicle. And it's the Merkaba, if you want to use that term. It's the flying carpet. It's the flying Pegasus. It's the flying unicorn. It's all of those things. You are a transportation system, and you fly throughout realities. So it teaches about the Christ Sophia template, which is the divine feminine, divine masculine, the different goddess activations, talks about the DNA predominantly and how the DNA is being activated right now into this, what many call the 5th strand, talks about this etheric DNA, which the 9 call doppelganger DNA, and they explain why they call it that. They talk about bilocation, trilocation, multi-location, omnipresence. And they also talk about some biblical passages like the 12 tribes of Israel. It goes into what that really is and how it's the matrix and it's the code. Interesting that you got the synchronicity about the code. It is all about code. It's all about the code. Everything is a code within the DNA. And so the whole book is really about what the 9 call Stargate Ascension, which is accelerated ascension. The Infinite Helix and the Emerald Flame, Sacred Mysteries of Stargate Ascension. I had such fun writing this because every single day I woke up, there was a new download, and it was an intense period of, I couldn't sort of switch off and go out really anywhere. I mean, I did occasionally, but most of the time I was just download every day, pouring out of me. And it was wonderful because a lot of the information I didn't know myself. And yes, and so that is carrying on. I'm currently in the process of downloading stuff for the next one, which will carry on from that series. The next one is more about matrix unification, and I'm not fully aware of what that is at the moment. That will all, I guess, come out. But in the meantime, I had so many people asking me about 5G.
Yeah.
And so I decided to do a video about 5G. And again, it was too long for a video, but it's too short for one of the other 3 books. This is a tiny little book. It's like a pamphlet, really. But the whole channeling is one piece, the Black Box Program and the Rose Gold Flame as Antidote, how to shield yourself from chemtrails, 5G, EMFs, and other energetic warfare through alchemical unification. So this touches on some of the work that will come through in my next book, because it is about unification. And it is a certain code, again, and this is a separate standalone book, doesn't connect in with the other 3 and using the same model. So the first 3 use the model of the matrix. This uses a different model. This uses the model of a trinity, talks about 33 and a third, 133 and a third, 233 and a thirds, or 333 and a thirds to make a whole. So it's a different geometric code. It's a different model. And you work with this structure, this trinity structure. You understand this trinity structure and you work within it to bring you into this unification space so that you are, if you like, I won't use the word protection because protection suggests that there's something you need protecting from.
Right.
So it can be a bit disempowering. The 9 have taught me to use the word shield as in shielding. And I know that's a similar thing. You're shielding from something. But a shield can be a crystalline structure or it's not necessarily protection in the same way. It's a shield against these discordant signals. So it isn't just about 5G. That's only part of it. The Black Box Program was a program put into place to control humanity. So it goes even further than the book goes into. We're talking here about an entire inverted matrix system, a netting system, if you like, to control humanity for various reasons. And it goes into that, and it goes into one of the programs, the Black Box program, which is using chemical warfare or frequency warfare. And the alchemical unification and the rose gold flame connect with the Schumann resonance. The Schumann resonance, the rose gold flame, and you yourself, you create this trinity to bring you into this unification. And the Schumann resonance is the heartbeat of this earth. It is this vibratory heartbeat of this earth, but it's far more connected to us than perhaps science would present it as. It's called the Schumann resonance because it's named after somebody with the surname Schumann who discovered it. But what the Nine is saying is that this is it's a frequency that we are all part of. It runs through us. It isn't just in the earth. It runs through our body, and we can work with it. So we work with it not just as a shield to protect us from 5G. So 5G goes ahead and up it goes all across the world, and we protect ourselves from it. It isn't just about that. It's about creating the timeline as to whether we have these things or not. And so the most probable timeline is one of the timelines that's probable for this planet is that 5G doesn't go ahead at all. I know you're saying it's up in some places, but the Nine are talking about there's an original 5G that's part of the Black Box program. That original 5G is this discordant signal, and instead of individuals connecting to this Schumann resonance, this heartbeat of Mother Earth, which flows through their body, they connect instead to this 5G signal, which is stronger than the Schumann resonance signal, and that will scramble their matrix system so that they cannot align and become whole and move through ascension and activate the DNA and activate the pineal gland, because this 5G signal is becoming like a false Schumann resonance, if you will. The most probable timeline is that because the starseeds are the ones that are controlling the timelines for this planet, and they are moving into this alchemical unification, whether they read this book or not, it's happening to them. They don't need to read the book for this to happen to them. Because that is happening, the most probable timeline for this planet is that this Black Box program, the intention for this 5G to scramble the signal, is not going to happen. But it depends how that manifests. Now, one way this can manifest is when starseeds connect with the alchemical unification, they raise the Schumann resonance. So the Schumann resonance, because they're so connected to it, they raise it above the level of this scrambling signal that they're calling 5G. That's one potential manifestation. Another potential manifestation is that 5G doesn't work. It breaks down. Things keep going wrong. There are so many problems with it. There are protests so profound across the world that governments decide not to install it. That is another potential manifestation of this timeline. The other manifestation is that the 5G that gets implemented is not the original 5G that can scramble the signal. It's a watered down version, and it's not really that much stronger than 4G. So they are the potential probable manifestations of a timeline where there is not an energetic warfare that can scramble the signal of ascending individuals and prevent their ascension. That timeline will not manifest, regardless of whether 5G goes up or not. However, if the 5G that's watered down is installed, there may be some sensitive individuals that still have some symptoms from that, because there are already individuals that are getting symptoms from 4G and 3G. There are some individuals, I'm very sensitive myself to EMFs, already. So the alchemical unification and using the rose gold flame as an antidote is assisting you on a personal level to assist you with chemtrails and EMFs per se. as well as moving us into this powerful unification where we control the timelines for Earth, and there is no scrambling system that can actually prevent ascension within individuals. So that's basically what this book is about.
Well, I find that very interesting because, I mean, if you're looking at the timelines, and I'm speaking here to towards the 5G, when was it? The beginning of 2018 that the Schumann resonance really started, or was it 2017?
It was 2018 on Easter.
Yeah, because it had basically been right at the normal, or what they consider to be the normal 7.82 or 83. And then all of a sudden, I mean, now whenever it's at what they considered normal, the 7.83, those days are rare because we watch the Schumann very closely, and it's rarely that way. It's normally spiked way higher than that on a pretty much a daily basis. I mean, is this part of what's contributing to that, you think, Magenta, or what?
Yes, definitely, absolutely. The mind don't even call it, their name for this, the Schumann resonance, is the crystal river. It's a crystalline plasma energy running through the Earth, and it's almost as though at the center of the Earth there is a core that is crystalline or diamond in structure that connects to other core diamond structures, crystalline structures within other planetary systems, and we have that same frequency running through us. The Schumann resonance isn't just in the Earth, it's in our bodies too. That's why they call it a river. And so we affect it, and when we know we affect it, we don't have to actually sit there and think, okay, Schumann resonance, can you please go higher? It's not really like that. It's the fact that we are activating our DNA. As our DNA activates within our body, as we activate the DNA in the brain, the Schumann resonance is raising higher. And as I said before, as above, so below as above, when the Schumann resonance on its own is raising its frequency, this crystal river, because there have been structures within the planet, the planetary grid system has been infiltrated and tampered with so that this diamond core structure could not give out a correct balanced frequency in order to communicate with other aspects within our solar system and beyond our solar system. So when the planetary grid structure is reconstructing itself, and so it's raising its frequency naturally, and because we're part of it, it's activating our DNA. So basically, we activate our DNA and we raise the Schumann resonance. The Schumann resonance is raising and is activating our DNA. It's both of these things simultaneously, which is why the Nine refer to it as a crystal river. And that's the antidote. When we can connect with that in a conscious way. They also talk about using the triquetra, the Celtic symbol, the triquetra, because it is a powerful symbol of Trinity, and to work in a way sort of like a sigil, to actually look at the triquetra, as you are aware of the Schumann resonance and of your own connection to it and the rose gold flame. You would look at this triquetra and allow the image to come into your own body and merge with it, because these geometric structures are living structures. And so they talk about utilizing the rose gold flame as a triquetra, and a rose gold triquetra, even to the point of doing things like having a tattoo of a triquetra, getting some rose gold jewelry that's in the shape of a triquetra. You can do all of these things. You can draw a picture of a triquetra, put it under your pillow. All of these things will help you move into this alchemical unification, because when you get that centered within you, you are then connecting with the crystal river, Schumann resonance, in a conscious way that makes that knowing cohesive. It makes that thought, that memory cohesive, which adds to the eternal flame, cosmic fire that I was talking about earlier. So it isn't just about the Schumann resonance on this planet, it's the whole solar system, it's all the planets. They're all connected together. And 5G is, from that perspective, such a tiny little thing, the power that the starseeds have is phenomenally more powerful than the black box program. The thing is, the black box program did work in the past before the starseeds came into this awakening, this indigo revolution that has occurred within this 2012 time period. The black box program has worked, but it's breaking down now. It isn't strong enough for this starseed signal and the connection with this crystal river, this crystalline awakening. These things just cannot work. They're all backfiring on the service to self structures that are creating them. And the way to know this is to have absolute faith. But I have come across individuals that are saying, oh, 5G won't work. Nah, it's harmless. Yes, that may be true, but one must be aware of the fact that, of the black box program and the intention. One must be aware of the dark shadow intention to hold us back, as well as holding the faith that we will not be held back. Because if you don't take both of those, you're simply bypassing the shadow, and that is not going to hold a cohesive memory that then sits within the eternal flame that can merge with the crystal river, if you know what I mean.
So
I'm using lots of metaphors here, but it's really the only way to kind of explain this code.
So it's complete and total balance. So if you
Absolutely.
you acknowledge the fact that there is shadow and you're
Yes.
holding the light, then you create that balance.
Yes, and that gives you the 0 point again, because the light and the shadow are the polarities: magnetic, electric, male, female, yin, yang, all the same thing.
All right.
It's just becoming aware of all these different ways of explaining, you know, the cosmic reality and the code. That's what it is, and there's so many different ways of interpreting it, and I just have one perspective, one model that the Nine give me that I share. You know, there are many different models out there, many different channels out there doing this work, and many starseeds that are grid working and working with the Crystal River. And, you know, the work the starseeds doing is phenomenal, and it's amazing. And they are, if you like, the saviors. Although, again, you shouldn't go into a savior mentality either, because that's not a memory, a focused memory, a cohesive memory, because the savior template is disempowering. But having said all that, yeah, they're saviors.
All right. Well, boy, it's hard to believe, but 2 hours is gone already. So we want to let you know that if you would like to find out more information about any of her books, she has a great website out called magentapixie.com. And, of course, you can always find her on YouTube, a lot of great videos to help you out on your journey on YouTube on Magenta Pixie. That's, I like it. It's all simple.
It's simple.
Yeah, it's very simple. So, Magenta, thank you so much for being on the show and sharing your experience, knowledge, and wisdom with us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Thank you for asking me. It's been lovely.
All right. Thanks so much for joining us. And Magenta Pixie, thank you again, dear. You were awesome.
We want to have you back on.
I know, right? I know. Well, we got to
Oh,
fly.
thank you. That'd be lovely.
We got to fly out of here. Raucous Saldos coming up next. So until next week, much love, guys.
Namaste, angels.
In this transmission from the White-Winged Collective Consciousness of Nine, I, Magenta Pixie, bring forward information specific to utilizing the rose gold flame as antidote to 5G, EMFs, chemicals, chemtrails, and similar. The presented template utilizes the Schumann resonance, and the technique is alchemical unification. In this book, the Nine discuss synchronicity, discernment skills, and understanding of discordance and disharmony within truth and lightworker communities. They present a workable model of expression, assisting the spiritual explorer in creating a necessary toolkit. This allows the individual to construct a shield, bringing safety, harmony, expansion, and cohesive sovereignty into their own personal reality and their matrix field. I am pleased to present my new short book, The Black Box Program and the Rose Gold Flame as Antidote.